Appreciation Society. God save the duck, vaudeville and variety. We are the Desperate Dan Appreciation Society. God save strawberry jam and all the different varieties. Preserving the old ways from being abused. Protecting the new ways for me and for you. What more can we do?
Non Non Biyori is a slice-of-life anime based on the comedy manga written by Atto, an anonymous Japanese mangaka who may or may not be a 71-year-old tapir. Still no confirmation on that. The Non Non Biyori anime has become a celebrated icon ever since its first season debuted in 2013. This inaugural first season was followed by a second season in 2015, bearing the name Non Non Biyori Repeat. In 2018, a spin-off movie named Non Non Biyori Vacation premiered, and then finally in 2021, the anime sadly came to an end with the final season, Non Non Biyori Non-Stop. I guess it wasn't so fucking non-stop. The original manga itself also finished its run in 2021, and aside from a short-term spin-off, it's currently unknown if we've truly seen the last of the Biyoris. This is a series that thousands of basement dwellers and Crunchyroll consumers alike hold near and dear to their hearts. And even though I don't have a basement, I too have a deep, undying love for this work. Okay, so that's the formal introduction. Now it's time to talk about why Non Non Biyori is a fucking serotonin overdose. Do you like happiness? Do you enjoy not feeling like shit? I hope you answered yes. Because Non Non Biyori is one of those special forms of media that transmit only the warmest senses of joy that an anime can afford to give. Emotion is perhaps the most important feature of any work of art. Thousands of people can watch a show or a movie, but only a certain portion of them are going to appreciate it for all of its finer points. Most are gonna simply watch it and just excuse it as another piece of entertainment good for a fun time. However, the one response unanimous to every viewer that watches something is the emotional response. You recognize how something makes you feel on a gut level. You watch something made to evoke sadness, then you're most likely gonna feel sad. You watch something that's meant to be exciting, then you're gonna feel your blood rushing and your boners trembling on the edge of your seat in anticipation. An anime, like any other piece of media, can resonate with the viewer's emotions in a multitude of different ways. Maybe you'll feel the silent burning fury inside when you realize your life will never be as relaxing and worry-free as your typical slice-of-life snooze fest. Or maybe you'll encounter a heart-stopping realization when watching a sports anime that you're fat. It all depends on your mentality, and your background, of course. This is basic psychology. Now, with all of that established, what kind of emotions does Non Non Biyori make you feel? To begin digging deep into that question, it's only proper I lay out exactly what this series of many emotional layers is even about. Non Non Biyori is a manga/anime set in the middle of nowhere, Japan, aka the rural part of Japan tucked between some mountains and stuff. Within the middle of nowhere is the quiet village of Asahigawaka, the location of Asahigawaka Branch School, where the four main girls comprising the central cast embark on daily adventures. The school can barely even be referred to as a school. There's a grand whopping total of 5 students, all of whom share the same musty classroom. The only established faculty member is a 24-year-old college graduate who suffers from narcolepsy. And on top of that, the floor is at constant risk of caving in from unrepaired roof leaks, thus placing the very small student body in terrible danger. However, they also have a very nice pool, and they also have these sick-ass painted tires outside to play on. So I'd say it's just slightly better than the average American school. 36 episodes, 120 chapters, and a movie later, we have the complete documentation of 1 year's worth of life within the small village. And believe me when I tell you that every moment spent getting to know that village's modest number of inhabitants, and taking part in their everyday adventures, are moments worth cherishing forever. I have many thoughts about each and every component working in Non Non Biyori's favor. And by God, I'm gonna try my absolute best to put all those thoughts into words, and maybe along the way we'll make a YouTube video out of it. And in typical Pico the Spicy Warlord review fashion, the best place to begin dissecting the attributes of a series is the extensive cast of colorful characters. Because this is an anime taking place in a school, Non Non Biyori begins with the introduction of a brand new student, Hotaru. Ichijo Hotaru is the new girl in town, and she's about to find out that living in the middle of bumfuck nowhere is actually really delightful. She ends up enjoying herself very much. Hotaru is the member of the main quartet of girls that bears the burden of being most easily labeled the boring character. Her quiet and shy demeanor doesn't seem to match the energy and the spirit the other girls possess, which is perfectly fine since the point of her character is that she's supposed to seem like the odd one out. Every description for Hotaru found in both the manga and anime slap her with the title of the transfer student. She is forever stuck with the perennial title of the new kid from the big city. And I think having her keep this label is all a part of highlighting her personal journey to settle into her new home within the vastly different world of Asahigawaka. The anime's second season, Non Non Biyori Repeat, which is essentially a retelling of the first season with freshly adapted scenes, documents the full evolution of Hotaru from the fish-out-of-water shy girl from the city to a more outgoing and exuberant villager that's fully assimilated with the slow, carefree lifestyle contained within the town. Her adjustment process is filled with hardship. She winds up lost multiple times due to how lush the environment is. She tries to pull off a fireworks show for her friends only to completely disappoint everyone. And all in all, she can't seem to view herself as a full-fledged part of her, admittedly small friendship circle. She experiences all the traditional struggles attached to moving to an unfamiliar place. And despite her timid nature, it's the welcoming, charming attitudes of the other characters that draw her into their tight-knit group and manage to make her feel like a genuine member of the school and community. In case it wasn't already apparent from her so totally not a 10-year-old appearance, Hotaru is exceedingly mature for her age in both personality and physicality, and boy do we get reminded of that. A lot. The gimmick of Hotaru being confused for an adult does overstay its welcome after you see it for the 15th time, but there are still a couple of pretty great moments that use her maturity as a punchline. I really enjoy this joke where Komari thinks Hotaru's shopping for a bra, only to find out she's just looking at the belts. It reinforces the fact that Hotaru is still a child, susceptible to the same fascinations and inclinations found within just about every kid her age. She also has her hidden spoiled side that she displays in front of her parents, which, you know, does become a little bit creepy when it happens. But it does make the punchline where this embarrassing side of her is exposed all the more funny. It's also due to this predisposition to childish behavior that Hotaru ends up developing a small lesbian crush / borderline psychopathic obsession with the charmingly cute older student Komari. Hotaru's infatuation with Komari stems from a general attraction to small cute things, but more so because of Komari's efforts to be a responsible and courteous senpai. She does a very piss-poor job at this, but Hotaru overlooks Komari's glaring shortcomings and grows to admire and respect her for simply being a genuine friend. Now, some question Hotaru's mental well-being on account of her unhealthy stockpile of handmade Komari plushies that she most certainly has used for self-pleasure at some point, but come on, this is cute. The plushie thing is cute. You know, it only becomes creepy after you turn 18, not when you're 10. And I mean, who hasn't gotten themselves a Komari plushie or two at some point? I mean, that's not just me. I know that's not just me. Hotaru is a good girl. Some would even say too good of a girl. You don't have to go far to find a Hotaru hater posting some shit about how little she brings to Non Non Biyori's table in terms of comedy and personality. But I think the fact that some people would classify her as boring or uninteresting only makes her fit in with the show even more, considering those two words are what many people use to criticize the series itself. When Non Non Biyori begins, we view it with the same set of eyes as Hotaru. We've just been brought into this podunk town. We're yet to know what kind of people we're gonna encounter, and the possibilities of what we're going to do there and how those events are going to change us as an individual are endless. Hotaru does undergo that change, and by the time the journey through the series is completed, you most likely will too.
Option 1. Say, "It's cold out again today." Option 2. Remain silent. Option 3. Snuggle Hotaru.
Well, if we're gonna go any further on justifying Hotaru's character, how about we move on to examining the object of her obsession, Komari. Komari Koshigaya, the middle child of the 3 Koshigaya siblings, was doomed from childhood to be too cute for her own good. Komari is yet another installment of one of my favorite tropes in anime, the punching bag. The character never allowed to experience any sort of release from the eternal suffering that is their sheer existence. If there is anything positive she has going for her, it's that she has a cute stalker for a friend. You know, that's the goal we all strive for. Contrary to Hotaru, who just wants to be seen as an ordinary kid, Komari is obsessed with trying her hardest to be the most responsible and most grown-up of the girls since she's the oldest, but inadvertently ends up making herself look the most childish and helpless in doing so. It's difficult enough to be born with the curse of dwarfism and be reminded every day that the world will forever literally look down on you for your height. But even the shrimpiest of people can still make up for their shortcomings by maintaining an optimistic and kind attitude. Unfortunately, Komari never learned that lesson. Instead, she develops her own glamorized interpretation of what it means to be grown up. She thinks owning a cell phone is a symbol of maturity. She thinks buying black bras is a symbol of maturity. She thinks owning a shitty outdated MP3 player is a symbol of maturity. Clearly, Komari tends to view material possessions as a measure of adulthood. How much fancy big kid stuff does it take to be viewed with respect? But to be fair, this is probably a result of her rural upbringing that deprived her of many actual adult role models. And it's not like the ones she did have were the best examples. Komari's unrequited quest to be recognized as the eldest girl leads to many more problems. She gets extremely insecure when she can't relate to her friends' discussion of music and fashion. She consistently lies about her knowledge of subjects like technology just to try and impress her peers even though she has no clue what she's talking about. Imagine not even knowing how to .com. God, what a fucking moron. She gets stuck skiing and has to be rescued by a 5th grader. She's just such a helpless little runt. Oh, and she also loses every game she ever participates in. Oh, and she also can't cook worth a shit, which further confirms her as a talentless failure. There is literally nothing good that happens to Komari. Every frame she's in is suffering. I'm taking back Fuka's Most Punished Character Award and giving it to this poor midget. However, even with her crippling insecurities and obsession with making herself seem older, Komari still never loses touch with her ability to fit in with her younger friends and family. She brags and boasts about her age and demands respect from everyone, but it's made plainly apparent that she's just as easily susceptible to the same childish games and antics her friends get into. Combine that with her love for her stuffed bear Shokichi-san and the running gag about how easily terrified she is, and it becomes obvious that she's just another kid from the countryside too eager to grow up. Which is nothing out of the ordinary. Towards the end of the 3rd and final season is when Komari at last seems to overcome her insecurity, swallowing her pride by accepting help from both her sister Natsumi and her mom in grown-up tasks she finds herself incapable of doing. Humbling moments like these are the high points for Komari's character, where she's forced to step back from her overwhelming desire to be the responsible and stylish adult she's idolized in her mind, and accept that for now, she's just an average kid with the rest of her youth ahead of her. And even amidst all of her struggles and humiliating moments, she always has her one and only supporter in the form of Hotaru, the only person to ever grace her with the coveted title of Senpai. So, in one way, she already has the respect and dignity she's striving for. Let's just hope one day she realizes that being under 5 feet is totally fine, because when you're this cute, dirty foreigners will still want to marry you. And you also make a very good plushie. Okay, let me get something out of the way real quick. Natsun is best Biyori! No contest, disregard all the others, built for warm hugs and fishing, Genki Tomboy Supremacy! So what is Natsumi Koshigaya? A brat, a loudmouth, a harbinger of destruction, a comedian. Natsumi is one of those love 'em or hate 'em characters, meaning you'll either think her pranks and mischievous attitude are funny and endearing, or you'll think she deserves the death penalty for ruining the whole episode. Now I've done my fair share of defending Genki hellspawns in the past, so let me explain why Natsumi is so important to the central cast. Natsumi has a personal policy, and that policy is to simply enjoy every day while she can. Unfortunately, the law of anime demands that wanting to have fun requires sacrificing your intelligence and sense of responsibility. Natsun does very poorly in school, bringing constant shame and dishonor to her family on a daily basis. She lies every time she breaks something or makes a mistake, which means that she lies at least 3 times a day. She just has an overall knack for constantly creating terrible situations for herself, whether it be through her reckless decision-making or her lazy approach to working. While she does usually receive some kind of comeuppance for her pranks and mischief, her behavior and bad habits never really go away over the course of the series, and that's because that's just her natural state of being. A crafty slacker is who she is. And it's this nature that makes Natsumi truly live up to her title of the class mood maker. Beautiful and serene as it may be, Asahigawaka is understandably not the most interesting and stimulating place to be, especially for a bunch of playful, action-starved children that have very scarce options for entertainment. Natsumi, however, ensures that every day offers its fair share of excitement, even if she has to supply that excitement herself by playing the role of the class jackass. Simply put, she makes the most of every situation and turns a boring day into a lively one. And that's the kind of person that makes for some of the most memorable moments. An excellent showcase of Natsumi's dynamic is when she tries to hold a cultural festival cafe, an idea that everyone else seems to shrug off as a time waster. Predictably, the festival is a bit of a shit show, and Natsumi confesses that she didn't expect trying to run a cafe would be such a struggle. She ends up taking all the heat for coming up with the idea and apologizes for her misjudgment. But I believe her intentions were absolutely pure in her heart. By trying to pull off a festival, something that almost every other school in Japan is able to do, all Natsumi wanted was to try and make a more authentic school experience for her and the other students that have never known what it's like in the world beyond their enclosed village. She tries her hardest to create situations that in her mind will equal fun for everyone, but when things go awry, it always rounds back to her being a senseless moron in the eyes of everyone else. So, please, have some sympathy for the idiot.
I have so much power! Thank you, Doctor!
However, all this name-calling and mocking is rather unfounded, as Natsumi ultimately proves herself to be more knowledgeable than anyone would expect. We see her true strength whenever she plays with young Renge by making her a fairy costume out of flowers, as well as later on when she helps a grief-stricken Renge overcome the death of her tadpole shrimp by making a new home for their offspring.
実はもしかしたらカブトエビ卵産んでないかなと思ってさ、飼育に使った土入れてまた水張っといたんだよね。
She shows off her smarts again later when she constructs a fish tank with a working filtration system and a slick-ass waterfall from scratch. Renge and Hotaru compliment her surprising knowledge of plants and wildlife after she shows them how to lure out a cicada nymph, as well as which roadside plants are safe to eat. There's a scene where she asserts dominance over a giant carp with her bare hands. Natsumi is a natural-born country girl with country smarts. She's a free spirit who has no place in a classroom, but finds her true self in nature where her endless thirst for fun can be quenched. Her acts of kindness done for Renge and even Komari whenever she's actually willing to ask for help reveal that behind the rowdy, unmotivated, troublemaking exterior, there's a heart of gold after all. Now, I love just about every character in this series. I would not discredit their impact for any reason. But, I must admit, like many others have, that a large part of Non Non Biyori's legendary status rests solely on the tiny shoulders of the beloved Ren-chon.
ニャンパスー。
So, you take an initial look at someone like Renge, and you say, "Oh, yep, that's the mascot. Slap her face on some promos and give her a fucking Nendoroid. Her purpose is now to sell products." Now, I don't blame anyone for this assumption. I mean, it's an easy guess to make when one of your main characters is so unimaginably cute that she's able to rival everyone's favorite green-haired daughter. It's only after spending no more than about 5 minutes watching the show that you realize this is a sweeping generalization and an extreme disservice to the glory that is Ren-chon. Renge manages to simultaneously possess the enlightened wisdom of an all-knowing sage that has transcended the mortal follies of mankind, while still being a first grader that likes drawing pictures of monkeys. I think giving an accurate description for child anime characters is one of the most difficult parts of doing these character analysis segments. Kids in anime and manga are either stupid but cute little creatures, or are on a plane of thinking so elevated that retards like myself can never properly do them justice. Renge is the latter. On one hand, she has an unbridled curiosity for the world both in and out of her very small home that goes hand in hand with the same gullible, innocent demeanor kids are known for. But on the other hand, she is intelligent enough to call out the mistakes and irresponsible behavior exhibited by her elders. To further showcase her intellect, Renge is also a master battle strategist, as proven by her brilliant performance during the Ruler Wars episode.
わかったぜレンチョン。このままレンチョンの定規を乗せつつツバメ返し。兄ちゃんの定規を2枚重ねで押さえ込み。
The very first day she set foot inside the school as a 1-year-old infant, she displayed dominance over every other student and even made some of them cry. Despite being only a first grader, there is no doubt that Renge is the top dog of the school, even if there's only 4 other dogs to rule over. Renge's personality is one eccentricity after the other. She has a seemingly infinite number of quirks that only further separate her from the rest of Non Non Biyori's cast. There's her trademark greeting,
ニャンパスー。
which aside from a rough translation to good meowing, we're still not really sure what it means. Her intelligence seems to overlap with her inherent childish way of thinking, which results in her having all kinds of odd speech mannerisms while also giving us some of the best quotes in the show. One of my favorite Renge-isms is how she names all the animals and pets she collects seemingly random words or phrases.
こいつの名前をその日暮らしにするん。名前とかつけたの？平平さんって言うん。こいつの名前はお塩にするの。いつも思うけど、レンチョンネーミングセンスないよね。え？
Now, even though I may hype up Renge as a strange, possibly inhuman turbo genius, who for some reason people believe is autistic, the truth is Renge is still a typical child, a lover of playtime and candy with an affinity for drawing and playing a mean recorder. She does undoubtedly possess the air of an old soul inhabiting a young person's body. Perhaps this is what's led to the popular fan theory that Renge is the reincarnated soul of a Vietnam War veteran, a theory supported by the momentary glimpses of what appears to be intense PTSD accompanied by a 1,000-yard stare, as well as the easy observation that Renge is physically incapable of smiling.
真っ黒に塗り塗り、あの日のことも塗り塗り。
She tries to release her post-war demons in the form of drawing, but the sad truth is that no matter how black she paints that cardboard, she can't paint over the past.
ニャンパスー。ニャンパスー。ニャンパスー。
Now, despite this little girl's lack of a smile and generally bizarre behavior, Renge's moments of heartfelt emotion and the way they resonate with viewers are some of the most memorable parts of Non Non Biyori. The scene where she's forced to confront the cold reality of death after her tank full of tadpole shrimp dies does a great job of both connecting with anyone who ever experienced the death of a pet as a kid, while also illustrating Renge's quiet but soul-crushing grieving process. It firmly reestablishes that this is still an inexperienced child who's being forced to grow up and learn all there is to know about the cruel world, in a place that seems too idyllic and peaceful to even be a part of that cruel world. Speaking of which, Renge's relationship with the entire village of Asahigawaka as a whole is quite an interesting one. Much like how Komari is sensitive about her maturity, and Hotaru is sensitive about her appearance, Renge is sensitive about her own home. She worriedly asks her friends if their village is really in the country, although it's vague if this is something she herself would consider a negative. She has a fascination with the world around her, and naturally has a desire to venture beyond her quaint but lovable hometown and further stimulate her young, curious mind. More importantly, imagine how it must be to be a kid in a town of only about 4 other kids, and all of them are years older than you. Renge's more mature, wise outlook mixed with that of an average little kid is probably a direct result of being exposed to nothing but older people for her entire life. This perspective is completely challenged when Renge finally meets a friend her own age, Honoka, a little girl visiting the village from out of town.
うちレンゲっていうの。私はほのかっていうの。夏休みになったからおばあちゃん家に泊まりに来たの。そうなん。
The two become friends instantly and spend a short couple of days having as much fun as they can, only for Honoka to vanish overnight when her family has to go home. Confronted with the sudden loss of her first and only equal-minded friend, Renge breaks. There are many sides of Renge. There's the playful schoolgirl, the insightful, gifted child philosopher, the naive, easily fooled 6-year-old that everyone loves to tease, and then there's the Renge who can do anything she puts her mind to. Anything she wishes to do, say, or accomplish, she will do it, say it, and accomplish it. She has the imagination, charisma, and determination necessary to conquer and rule the world if she so desired. The only problem is that she's still stuck in the country.
うちそういう尖ったこと考えるの大好きなん。レンチョンそういうことならお任せなん。ジャックナイフの柄の部分ことうちに。わあ、グリップ感しかない。もしくは歩く生き字引と呼んでくれたら嬉しいです。生き字引は普通歩くのに。
Since Non Non Biyori places an emphasis on how small and confined its setting is, it's only fitting that the supporting cast is small enough to fit within it. However, this ends up being an advantage as the supporting characters manage to make their presence in the series feel just as large and important as the main quartet, with some of them even standing out as all-time fan favorites. The one we grow most acquainted with is Renge's older sister / the only teacher in town, Kazuho, a woman tragically born with empty eye sockets, cursing her to a lifetime of blind misery and helplessness. Just look at her. She's a mess. Because being awake for her is non-stop pain, she sleeps. She sleeps a lot. For fuck's sake, she's still sleeping. Kazuho is precisely what you'd imagine a college graduate stuck living in a micro-sized village teaching a bunch of kids who pretty much teach themselves would turn into. A laid-back, alcoholic slacker who's probably not the best role model for children without many role models to begin with. But let's give her some credit. Due to how extremely close she inevitably grows to her students, she truly resembles more of a friendly older sibling than a traditional teacher, taking the girls on camping trips and beach trips and forcing them into child labor several times. She has her responsible side as well. The kids travel across the country to Okinawa on a vacation, and not a single one of their reckless parents go with them, just Kazuho. And also her friend who may or may not be a lesbian. When she needs to be the one trustworthy adult in the room for the girls to turn to, she absolutely can be. And other times she can steal a futon and risk letting her students freeze to death in the middle of a snowstorm. Okay, she might be an overall danger to the children's health. But without her, there's literally nothing but old people planting rice in this village. There has to be at least one fun, carefree adult willing to show the kids how to separate rest from work. And that is Kazuho. Speaking of Renge's family members, I guess it's time to talk about Meme Girl. Hikage, also known as Second Best Girl, also known as Most Popular Character according to this Japanese popularity poll, is what happens when you take a country-grown girl and throw her into the bright lights of city life. You get a smug, cheeky Tokyo bourgeois wannabe who can't stop talking about the Shinkansen and Tokyo Tower. Meanwhile, nobody actually cares about her experience going to school in the city, and she spends the entire series taking all kinds of punishment for her inflated ego. However, Hikane's show-off attitude is usually shattered pretty easily whenever she inevitably gets roped back into the rough but relaxing lifestyle found within her hometown. No matter how much time she spends away from Asahigawaka and gets more and more enchanted by city living, she never loses her connection with her roots or her former classmates, and is never too old or too sophisticated to play one of their silly kids' games. She fulfills her role as a big sister in an aloof but loving way, and through multiple flashback chapters and sequences with the girls, we get to see that friendly big sister persona break through the tough facade she tries to put on. Her kindred bond with Natsumi and her sisterhood with Kazuho allow her to remain a constant, ever-present part of the village's collection of personalities, even when she's not around. It's a nice reminder that you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl. I don't know why so many of these exist. Who the fuck is making these? Also, Natsumi and Hikage are the best duo in all of anime and deserved way more scenes of them being dumbasses. I demand a spin-off as soon as possible. However, the true big sister of the village is the friendly girl next door, Konomi. I've heard in circles over the years that Konomi might be a little bit too perfect. She has the perpetual friendly smile and attitude, she gives off a warm, comforting aura to everyone she meets, and she treats all the girls in the village with nothing but pure kindness. Except for that time she tried to murder Natsumi, but that's okay, everyone's done that at some point. Konomi is at the absolute top of the social hierarchy. Because of her status as a 12th grader, she can pretty much treat any character however she wants and never experience the traditional bullying and occasional suffering that torments everyone else in the show. This might not be seen as very fair, but you know, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna really try to mess with this person? She looks like she'd kick my ass. Konomi has proven her role as the most adult of the girls. She's capable of handling and controlling any of them, while also offering proper elderly guidance, such as when she convinces Natsumi and Komari to stop fighting over something as stupid as black coffee, or during her entire arc where she helps her underclassmen from school, Akane, overcome her shyness by practicing the flute with her every day. In a small world of girls without many examples to look to for counseling, Konomi extends a helping hand to all, even the precocious Renge, who to this day is convinced Konomi is actually a monster. I wouldn't call Konomi perfect. I would call her ideal. The ideal woman for the younger girls to look up to. However, she also once tried to get rid of Natsumi's tomboy tendencies. And that is something I'm not going to forgive. De-tomboyification is a serious offense. -1 Konomi point.
Oh, damn, bitch!
As the youngest kid in town, Renge is not short of older caregivers. Aside from her 2 older sisters and Konomi, she does apparently have 2 hardworking rice farmers for parents, although you'd never know it considering not once do they make an appearance. Instead, this parental void is filled by Renge's actual mom, Kaede, aka the lady from the candy store. Kaede fulfills another niche attached to a traditional small rural town. The 20-year-old high school graduate who never left town and now lives a boring day-to-day existence with little to look forward to. She runs a sweet shop with barely any customers. Her only major friend is a sluggish teacher who usually gets drunk when they hang out or just sleeps. She's a depressing example of just how little excitement a small town life provides to a young adult, especially a lonely one without a family to offer company. The only light in Kaede's less than glamorous life is Renge, her most loyal customer that's never too shy to drag her into a game or event. And god damn it, is their relationship the most beautiful thing to ever bless my jaded heart.
Ah. Ah.
What's great about the pair's bond is that we gradually learn how much Kaede truly loves Renge, solely through her actions more than her words, mostly due to how unbearably tsundere she is towards her surrogate daughter. There's this scene where she learns over the phone that Renge is running a mild fever and then hauls ass across town just to check on her and give her a bunch of free snacks, and then refuses to admit she was worried, which just makes everyone tease her harder.
ほら、それレンゲに持ってきたんだから。
やっぱレンチョンのお見舞いでしたか。やっぱ心配だったんじゃん。駄菓子屋めんどくさい性格してますな。
And then she reads Renge a story that they've already read together over a dozen times.
It's
beautiful.
Seeing these two develop an unconventional, nurturing bond over the course of Renge's life feels like another one of those Japanese propaganda messages that really make you want to go out and have adorable kids of your own to raise. But then you remember you're watching slice of life anime and you give up on those fantasies.
すぐにやめないから地獄なんだよ。
Kaede is certainly an imperfect person. She was a bit of a delinquent during her teenage years. She definitely has a bad temper when it comes to dealing with the likes of Natsumi and Hikage. And she also might be a bit of a hound for money and all the various ways to acquire it. But we see her try and suppress these flaws for the sake of Renge. Even when she's near the point of blackout drunk and is crying over how quickly time is passing her by, she'll still pick herself up and play the role of the strong, stoic adult, and make Renge a glass of milk. She's a wonderfully done character with all the qualities of a small-town resident, relying on her relationships with others to get through relatively uneventful days. That exact same description can be applied to every Non Non Biyori character, from youngest to oldest. A bunch of girls pretty much different in every conceivable way, united mostly by the fact that all they've got is each other. It's fascinatingly adorable to witness the unlikely chemistry a group of characters all of different ages can have. You buy into the friendships shared between the cast, and want nothing more than to see those friendships flourish. Oh shit. I forgot to talk about best boy / only boy, Ren-chon. Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. There is no plot in Non Non Biyori. There's only the episodic affairs of the characters and the gradual unwrapping of their different personalities. You can't argue that nothing happens, because things do happen. There's just a noticeable lack of conflict or an overarching story. This is what everybody even remotely familiar with anime should expect from something tagged with slice of life, but for some reason critics still think it holds any weight. And for another matter, they think it always counts as a negative. Non Non Biyori replaces anything resembling a narrative with something just as powerful: its setting. The setting controls the pacing, the progression of time, the progression of characters, the events taking place depending on the season, and most importantly, it controls the emotion. The emotion of the viewer, that is. Brace yourselves, because we're about to talk some knowledge that only the fans of cute anime like this would ever give a shit about. We're talking about slice of life subgenres. More specifically, we're talking about Iyashikei. According to the all-knowing TV tropes, Iyashikei is a genre in anime and manga created with the specific purpose of having a healing or soothing effect on the audience. The anime manages to achieve this healing effect through the combined efforts of the visuals, the music, and the atmosphere. To simplify things, Iyashikei is essentially the media equivalent of lounging in a bathtub with the 10 hours of nature sounds video playing in the background. Comfort and coziness is the desired result of watching one of these anime, and while this is not a guaranteed result since not everyone can enjoy the same things, the usual response to indulging in Iyashikei is never supposed to be one of frustration or intensity, but of peace and tranquility, blocking out the oppressive noise of your everyday surroundings, and allowing the sights and sounds of the show to envelop you like a warm blanket. Now, from a brief description, it may sound like I'm describing nothing but pure escapism, and while it's true an anime as idyllic as Yuru Camp or Aria can be used for escapist purposes, this isn't the genre's front and center objective. Iyashikei is more focused on the mood and the state of mind. When properly executed, an Iyashikei anime can become an almost therapeutic and meditative viewing experience, allowing one to immerse themselves in a relaxed mind state and diminish whatever kind of stress or anxiety they may be plagued with during their ordinary day-to-day lifestyle. When people want to relax and decompress their minds and bodies after dealing with all the unpleasant bullshit that makes up existence, some of the go-to solutions are listening to music they enjoy, watching a feel-good movie or show, maybe even playing a video game that captures their imagination and shuts out the problems troubling them. These are all nothing more than distractions, entertainment mediums offering a break from reality by putting your mind at ease. Iyashikei anime are virtually no different, providing a pleasant atmosphere that appeals to the senses of sight and hearing, while simultaneously relieving one's exhausted mind without them even realizing it. Iyashikei anime can make your day better, and if they truly go above and beyond, they can potentially make your life better. In the eyes of many fans, Non Non Biyori stands at the upper echelon of this genre. The very first episode draws in the audience with its extensive roll of gorgeous countryside backgrounds, accompanied by the sound mixture of both the beautiful OST and the general ambience of springtime in Japan. It's immediately conveyed that this is a series that's going to show a lot of appreciation for nature, along with all the natural healing properties tied to it. Using nature as a backdrop is extremely common in Iyashikei, and that should be no surprise since nature is inherently connected with all things serene and tranquil. Fun fact, many Japanese scholars claim that hearing that painfully familiar sound of a cicada buzzing in your ear is equally as effective for relaxing as a dose of Xanax. Non Non Biyori's rustic setting produces some of the greatest visceral doses of peace that an Iyashikei anime can give. Every frame of just the surrounding area is breathtaking. Not even the shitty CG trucks can take away from how satisfyingly pretty everything is. What's great about the series is that, aside from a plethora of establishing shots, the show doesn't try to beat you over the head with how otherworldly beautiful the setting is. Over the course of just the first season, you build a mental map of Asahigawaka's layout and all the scenic areas encompassing it. And once you've become so familiar with the location, it makes any subsequent viewings of the show all the more refreshing. It's like taking a step onto your front porch. It's nothing new, you know this place like the back of your hand. But, when so many oppressive elements of life are crushing your soul at the end of every day, sometimes the best way to remedy the pain is to step outside and do nothing but breathe in the air. Non Non Biyori exhibits that moment of tranquility in each of its episodes, and feasting your eyes on some of the greatest scenery ever contributed to animation is some of the best mental medicine out there.
Eat your tomatoes. Is it good? Is the tomato good?
この味まさしく太陽の恵み。
But visuals are only one thing. You can look at a beautiful painting and acquire the same feeling. Non Non Biyori's secondary sensory quality is its soundtrack. Much like how the animation and colors are a detox for the eyes, the music of Non Non Biyori is a detox for the ears, with each composition harboring a gentle sound that elevates the experience to a magical level. The sunny road motif that appears in multiple songs throughout the show serves as an anthem to youth itself and the calm, idle nature of it. So much emotion can be felt behind the music, but for me, it produces just as much sadness as it does stillness. There's an inherent sense that you're listening to a soundtrack of a lost era of life, The years spent viewing the world and its surroundings with wonder and enchantment. Even if you never knew anything even remotely close to a quiet country life, you can still connect to the themes of bygone innocence and simplicity. It's odd that these melancholic feelings would arise considering how the music is intended to evoke calmness instead of depression, but that's just how powerful it is. The music doesn't forcefully tug at your heartstrings. It's a gentle massage for your ears that snakes its way into your brain, resonating with all the pleasant memories of childhood, peace, and the idyllic moments of life locked away in the past. The music, great as it is only completed by its pairing with equally beautiful visuals. Judging by how many videos exist coupling Non Non Biyori's background music with just still frames from the series, it shouldn't need to be clarified that the anime knows perfectly well how to establish a tone and mood that adds to the sedative quality of the show. However, despite how I endlessly praise the glory of the art and music working in conjunction, some of my personal favorite moments in the show are when nothing happens.
せっかくあったかいのにじっとしてるの暇なの。
Each episode can feel like a slow, uneventful tour guide of an admittedly eye-pleasing setting, but I believe the laid-back pace and energy of the series is ultimately intended to further simulate the feeling of country life. The same goes for the events in every episode: bug catching, swimming, biking, taking a walk down to the candy store. Very thrilling concepts for an anime episode, I know. But the simplicity is all a part of the healing process. Iyashikei anime utilize familiarity to keep the setting and situations grounded enough to where the viewer can easily be drawn into the environment. The setting is undeniably beautiful, but it's still painfully realistic. I guarantee you can find real-world inspirations for Asahigawaka if you look hard enough. Not even just in Japan, but anywhere within preserved natural landscapes. But if the charm of Non Non Biyori's setting is that it produces a calm and relaxed state by essentially showing you glimpses of reality, well, then why do we even need Iyashikei anime? You know, why not just go outside? The answer is limitations. You can't easily come by a walk through a beautiful countryside, or an enchanting cliffside, or a gorgeous mountainside. Despite how gargantuan the world is, pure natural beauty and the healing benefits of it are less common than I wish they could be. Some of us have jobs, commitments, or just a lack of motivation to drop everything and pursue a cozy rural life. Escaping our less than ideal urban existence sounds really nice, but for most of us, it's just a far-off fantasy. Are you gonna pack your bags and move to the Japanese countryside because you watched an anime? Good luck with the xenophobia, you filthy gaijin. Through genres like Iyashikei, we can substitute our lack of soul-soothing environments with fictional ones. Realistic fictional ones that trim out the harsher, unsettling elements of life, and allow us to virtually appreciate the simple beauties we rarely get the chance to experience. Non Non Biyori does more than just offer you 24 minutes of animated Asian girls playing outside with some pretty green grass to look at. Should you open your eyes, ears, and mind, it can be a piece of animation that heals your very soul.
Time lives our lives with us, walks side by side with us. Time is so far from us.
I've always been really fascinated by time. Time as a concept is almost beyond comprehension. It's an unstoppable force that dictates the progress of humanity and the world in general, deciding when things begin and when they end. Time is going to kill every last one of us one day. It's an unsettling, possibly even downright horrifying concept to put some thought into. However, with that existential quality is also a bittersweet quality. There's an underlying tragic beauty of how impermanent time is, how all things must eventually end in a cycle of death and rebirth. When you're looking at a really nice, tasty burger you spent hard-earned money on, and within less than 5 minutes that delicious burger is gone. It's no longer there, but you enjoyed the time spent eating it. This is a really bad example, but it's a good segue into a very important aspect of an anime like Non Non Biyori. Mono no Aware. Mono no Aure can translate to the pathos of things, or an empathy towards things, or just a sensitivity towards the passage of time. It's a style of art that's all about recognizing how transient life is, how fleeting our experiences are, and how all the best parts of life are slated to end whether we want them to or not. It's a very debated term, especially in geeky anime circles that I really wished I didn't spend so much time in. But I believe that at the core of it is an appreciation for ephemerality. Something like childhood is an extremely brief period that passes us by before we even have time to realize how far behind us it is. And that's why so many people look back on it with longing and sadness. You don't learn how to properly admire something until it's faded away, which is something Japanese artists that embrace Mono no Aure love to insert into their works. For Non Non Biyori, something like Mono no Aure is primarily present in the changing of seasons and the progression of the school year. The series acknowledges that time is moving forward, but there's rarely any in-universe discussion of what this spells for the future. The girls, just like most kids, don't stop to take in how fast the year and effectively the prime of their youth is flying by. Instead, they focus on enjoying all the pastimes and experiences attached to the rapidly changing seasons. The series is yet another reminder that while it's important to remember how temporary things like childhood are, we shouldn't always look at the loss of it as something to feel sad over. We can be nostalgic and remember how much better the past may or may not have been, but we should also keep in mind that even though good things come to an end and new hardships arise to replace previous ones, life will still keep moving forward, and the years will still keep piling up. Watching Non Non Biyori is meant to resemble dropping in on a random point in the lives of some kids from a village in the middle of who knows where, and then spending 1 year's time learning all about them and growing to love them, until one day time catches up and the year is over. There was a popular inside joke for a while about the timeline in Non Non Biyori. The manga cycles through each of the 4 seasons about 3 times, even though everything is supposed to take place in only a year. The same time fuckery happens in the anime when, at the start of the new season, the clock is reset back to the start of the school year, which led to the joke about how the residents of the village are trapped in a never-ending time loop and will never be allowed to see the start of a new school year. However, that loop is finally broken in the 3rd and final season. And that's when the Mono no Aure levels are ramped up to 11. We get to see Renge finally reunite with Honoka after 8 years of waiting for them to see each other again, and Renge at last gets the chance to properly say goodbye to her when she leaves again. Kaede drunkenly reflects on the past year and how in such a short amount of time, the kids in town have grown past her expectations, and as the final gentle punch to the viewer's gut, we have episode 12. The last episode, the end of Non Non Biyori. In a world where it seems ending a series is even more difficult than actually writing one, Non Non Biyori's ending might be one of the most satisfyingly poignant finales ever created. The school year officially comes to an end, and we get to see Natsumi and Komari's older brother Suguru finally graduate. It's a humble and almost underwhelming graduation. Suguru even ends up having to be the one to play his own graduation song. But its simplicity and intimacy due to how small the whole affair is matches the quiet and easygoing tone that's been present since the series began. Later on, the entire cast goes out to play by sledding down a hill on cardboard sleds, behaving as they would any ordinary day. Renge brings along a new friend of hers, Shiori, the daughter of the village's police officer who is soon going to start 1st grade at the school, just like Renge had 12 months earlier. Konomi grows sentimental and relays to Hikage about how much things have changed in such a short amount of time, expressing emotions that the viewers themselves are probably feeling by that point.
長かったというか短かったというかなんだそりゃ
At the end of the day, the 4 main girls walk Shiori home and uncover her pregnant mother going into labor before calling a taxi to get some help. A few days go by, and soon enough, the first day of school arrives at last. Suguru leaves for high school and drops the number of students at Asahigawaka by 1. But his vacancy is filled by Shiori, When dropping by the new first grader's home to pick her up, they meet her newborn baby's sister, Kasumi, who Renge promises to befriend and look after once she's old enough to attend school herself. And then, the 4 girls plus their new companion Shiori make the walk to school just like they've done countless times before, and will continue to for years to come. Just like that, the show is over. But it's hard to initially accept that. This final episode has been all about letting go of the present and welcoming the future. Welcoming the flow of time. We see this represented symbolically by the 3 birds Suguru notices on his way to graduation. The 3 birds representing he and his 2 sisters. Once the graduation is over, we see only 2 birds, flying free into the future without him. Renge also learns to welcome the future, finally graduating from her status as the youngest and realizing that she's now going to be viewed as a big sister by both Shiori and Kasumi. You even have Hikage finally impressing someone with her stories of going to Tokyo and at last achieving gratification. All of the slightest loose ends are tied together, and each character, whether it be in the final episode or prior episodes of the season, obtain their own fulfilling conclusion. With a year of growing and learning behind them, they can move forward into the next year and all the ones to follow. The time we spent with them has only been a brief slice of the life they're yet to face, but we know with certainty that they're prepared to face it. After all, the most important message the anime leaves behind is one of hope. Even though the year is over, and some things have ended while others, such as Komari's eventual graduation, are still yet to come, the village and its posterity is guaranteed to persevere. The spring season brings the blossoming of the cherry blossom trees, and it also brings new life. The village, the school, and its people are not going to fade away no matter how much time passes. And that's why, even though it may be difficult to say goodbye to a long-lasting series like this and give in to the unstoppable nature of time, we shouldn't be hung up on it forever. We leave on a happy note. The girls are last seen smiling and blissfully enjoying themselves. New life has ensured the survival of the village and its memories. Everything will continue in some form or another, even if we won't be there to see it. For the time being, all is well. But all that I've said could be differently interpreted or reported by someone else. Subjects like Iyashikei and Mono no Aware are often difficult to translate into words because they register with viewers not on an intellectual level, but on a subconscious level. It ties into what I mentioned earlier about how no matter how smart you are or how different your tastes are when it comes to media, the one universal measurement that everyone who watches anime uses is their emotions. Some will feel the healing nature of Non Non Biyori and love it more for it. Others will watch the show through to the end and feel distraught that time flew by so quickly. And others will just say, "Oh, look how cute Ren-chon is, I just want to pat her purple head." And that'll be the end of it. All I know for certain is that I, along with many others who love Non Non Biyori for the wonderful experiences it's delivered, have cherished the brief time we've spent enjoying it. Bidding it farewell is heartbreaking, but we've learned by now that the best things in life will always pass. The fun is over, the kids have grown, the non has stopped. But that's only the nature of time. Despite that, the series and all its best qualities will never go away. Rewatch it, reread it, reminisce about the time spent experiencing it, and share it with others. As long as fans continue celebrating its goodness and being thankful for how many spirits it managed to lift, Non Non Biyori will never be just a memory of a bygone day. When you need something comforting or healing to sit through, when you want to revisit some familiar beloved characters, when you want to take a trip to a village you want nothing more than to be a part of, or if you just need a bittersweet reminder to appreciate the present, the world's most gentle welcome home awaits.
ここは